This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 50. 50. We made 50.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Marjaba. Ramsey does not like hanging up picture frames.
Hello, SE Nation. This is show 50. It's a big deal for me. We've been running close to a year now. It's not our 1 year anniversary, but we've made 50 podcast episodes, which is awesome. At least for me. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things, of what's happening in the world, but I'm proud of us, of SE Nation, because we're doing this together. If it wasn't for you messaging me and emailing me, telling me that I'm making a difference in your life, I probably would have stopped a long time ago. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you being here. I am enjoying the process. I am enjoying the notes that I'm getting from you, whether you're not even an SE yet and trying to become one, or you're an experienced SE who's just enjoying the show. So thank you. So that being said, I would like your input in something. On the website, I do have a hidden forum, which is used mainly for me to publish my book reports. The people that are part of my book club have access to it, but nobody else, because it's, hidden. Because I'm trying to build a community, and I want everybody involved. This is not just a website where I dispense my wisdom, because quite frankly I am in short supply of that. So I would like to see if you guys are interested in having a forum where everybody can have a discussion. We can come in, ask your questions, and get responses, and build a debate, and go from there. If this is something of interest to you, message me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I will be posing this question tomorrow, so keep in mind. You have to follow me to see the message. And if you decide that this is something that you would like, I would like also a few of you to consider being mediators on that site. Because, I need help, basically. I need help from the community to make sure that everything's being respectful. I need help from the community to make sure that everything's going well on the site. Pose your questions and see if we can answer them. All right, so for this episode, this is show 50, and I welcome Bill Lapp to the podcast. Bill is not a sales engineer, not anymore. He is the global leader for customer success at Zscaler. And I wanted to have Bill on the show because I have no idea what customer success is, and because he was an SE, which means if you're thinking of the possible next steps for you, this is one of them. And show notes can be found on wetheSalesEngineers.com/show50. I really enjoyed talking to Bill, and I hope you will enjoy my conversation with him. So without further ado, here's Bill. Good morning, Bill. How are you today?
Great, thank you.
I know it's awkward because we just had maybe a 10-minute conversation and we're starting over. But for the listeners who weren't part of our conversation earlier, do you mind introducing yourself and what you do?
Sure, no problem. My name is Bill Lapp, and now I actually lead a function called Customer Success at Zscaler. Zscaler, if you're not familiar, is a network or security company. We went public about 1 year ago today, so it's been an interesting ride, pre-IPO, post-IPO.
Nice.
Business is doing well here. And then before that, though, before taking on customer success here, I actually ran the Americas sales teams, sales engineering teams here, and then a fair amount of other sales engineering teams at a place called Good Data, and then Cisco before that.
Okay, so before being a customer success manager, is that the correct title?
So my next blog post myself is on titles. I'm not a big one on titles, but I'm responsible for the whole customer success function across Zscaler. So it's about 160 people right now. So we took it a year ago. It was about 55 people. We've been hiring very quickly moving that up. So we need to end at about 200 and something people in a couple months. So if anyone out there is listening, I'm hiring. But it's about 200 people globally. So we've got people in each geography, leaders in each geography. And it's set up very similar to a pre-sales team. So we have basically pre-sales. Usually you have in SaaS business, usually it's one SE to every 2 sales reps. In the customer success, we have just inverted that a little bit. So you basically have 2 technical people to every 1 business type person. So it's still structured like a pre-sales team. It's just post-sales, and you still have technical people and business people partnered up just like pre-sales.
Before I move on to my next question, you're hiring. Is there a link that people can go to actually find those postings?
Yeah, zscaler.com/jobs, or you can just reach out to me directly at LinkedIn. I'll find you the right place. So
awesome.
The one thing I found in these roles, it doesn't matter what job, sales engineering, customer success, if you find the right people and bring them in, then everything else gets a lot easier.
All right, I'll have those in the show notes so people can find them off my website. Your LinkedIn and zscaler.com/jobs, which is very difficult to remember.
Yeah, either my LinkedIn profile or zscaler.com/jobs or careers or whatever it's listed as. It should be pretty fun. If you can't figure out where the job postings are,
don't apply. Yeah, that's a good test. All right, so I have no idea what customer success is. I know what it is as a concept, but what do people who work in customer success do? Do you mind running me through that?
It's a good question. So one of the things that was interesting was I looked at you look back in the industry and what's happened over time. Most technical companies, basically start up and you had your sales team. So you're usually account managers or sales reps, and then you had sales engineers or sales solutions consultant or whatever new title someone invented. So you had your pre-sales teams, and then your post-sales teams consisted of 2 groups. You had support, and then you had like a TAC or technical assistance center. And then you had professional services. It's typically the way that a tech company was structured. When SaaS came about, software as a service, it changed a little bit, right? Because you had a little bit more of a mentality of, I need to both be hunting new customers, but then I need to farm the customers I have and keep them growing and keep them subscribed. And then, post-sales didn't really change a whole lot. So what you had happen over time in SaaS is it evolved to say, I need a sales team, I need a support team, I need a professional services team, but I need something else because I'm a renewal business. I need a customer continuing to come back to me. And what I found right now is the industry calls a lot of things customer success, but it's all different. I find a lot of times what you'll have a renewals team. So someone that just goes back and tries to get the renewal of the customer every year, and they call that customer success. Other companies will call their support team customer success because they're like, I'm taking cases, I want them to be successful. And then you have other organizations where customer success is a fancy name for their professional services team. If you pay me money, I will give you services to make you successful. So the industry is I would say very different on all of what customer success does. So you can imagine trying to hire a profile for a customer success manager, a CSM is the term now, or a technical account manager. So you can think of a CSM like a sales rep almost without a quota, and a TAM like an SE, but for post-sales. What I will say though is we've done it a little bit differently. We basically took our teams out of sales and out of support, created a whole new function. And the whole function of what we do is we work with a customer to say, what are you trying to achieve? What does success look like? What are your business criteria? And then we work with them backwards to make that a reality and make that happen. So every customer at Zscaler gets some form of customer success engagement. And then the whole idea is if I can work with you to use the product, get it deployed, meet whatever your requirements were, whatever you were trying to achieve, then naturally, if I do all that right, you're going to renew. You're going to expand. You're going to adopt the product more. So I don't need to charge you extra money. I don't need to do all these other things. If I just make it so that you actually achieve what you thought you were getting when you bought the product, you'll keep doing business with me. And makes it a little bit easier.
Wouldn't that be part of pre-sales to make sure that the customer like when the part of pre-sales is to understand what the customer wants to achieve and then sell the right stuff to get to what they want.
You would think so. So,
Okay.
differing sales teams are good at differing amounts of discovery. But in reality, what happens is this. Think about the way a customer works, right? You have someone that's usually an executive sponsor, a thought leader. You got a traditional, the way it used to work was you had plan, build, run. So you get these plan and build teams at a customer that's building a service, and then you have the operations team that makes reality. So the sales team is usually working with the people who have the vision of what they're trying to change inside of their customer. But then when the customer purchases, it has to go to their engineering teams or operations teams to actually scale it and deploy it. So just like inside of your own company, where sometimes messaging doesn't come down, the person who bought us oftentimes at a customer oftentimes isn't the one who's implementing, deploying, or scaling it out, right? That requires a much broader set of people. So, I think of it a little bit like, I'm building a backyard, right? So the backyard, I have an architecture, I have plans, I have business objectives, I want a pool, I want, a pavilion with an overhang. So I might be the overall visionary of what I want. But my wife, let's be honest, is the one who's going to make it a reality because I travel all the time.
Okay.
So I may have this vision of what I want, but it's my wife who has to work with the contractors every day and, the developers. And, do I always communicate successfully to my wife everything I want? No. So she has to also know what's needed, right? So someone is, having the high level vision, but someone's got to figure out how to make it a reality too. And so I think a lot of what you look at customer success as is almost like a product manager inside of a company.
Right.
Like someone's working just constantly day in, day out to make sure we're going on the right track on a project. So it's like a product manager or program manager, that kind of a function to partner with the customer.
Okay. Let me tell you why this concept is a little foreign for me. I come from a hardware sales background. Like I used to work on routers beforehand, and now I sell test equipment, which are hardware. So if a customer buys from me the wrong thing from the get go, and then customer success comes in and tells them you bought the wrong thing, you have to buy some more stuff, they're not going to be happy. But for what I understand from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because it's software, it's adaptable. People like you can actually change it to fit their needs without extra cost, or how does it work exactly?
Yeah, so it's not usually necessarily that it's different. It's a different level or different skill set, right? So pre-sales team, and same thing at Cisco, right? So I worked at Cisco for 10 years. They've been trying to do a customer success team. They don't know if they should. They've hired, they've laid people off. In my view, they already have a customer success team. It's their sales team because their sales teams there do both pre-sales and post-sales. They do the whole life cycle.
Yep.
But what happens with that is you have two different mentalities with sales teams. You have hunters and you have farmers. Hunters are the ones who love going out and overcoming a challenge, finding some new customer, finding some new contact, getting in, selling a vision of what could be high level. They're not always detail oriented. So they're doing that, right? They're hunting something. Sometimes you'll have sales reps that are farmers and they're just going back to their existing customer. They're nurturing them along. So what you have in a sales force and where you see some companies like Cisco struggling is you have a set of people who are trying to go out and find new customers. And the saying was, don't confuse selling with installing. And then you have, these other sales reps that just love dealing with just the customers they have and getting them to buy more. And so it's not necessarily that you do it right or wrong, and you can do both. It's just hard for one sort of type of person to do both I need to go and get new contacts, find new people, sell a big vision, but then also get all the way down into the weeds of, well, how do I implement this or how do I make it a reality? So a better way to think of it is, you kind of have your architect up front who tells you your plans and what things could look like. And then you've got your general contractor who then has to say, well, how does it actually fit together? What's the mathematics of it? And how do I do all the details of it?
Right.
Because it's very rare that the architect who draws plans up at the very beginning, the end product is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's probably the better way to think of it. Pre-sales is developing this overall vision of architecture of what you can do. and the post-sales teams are translating that into a reality.
Right. So, and we're talking here not just like the sales people, we're talking about the sales engineers as well. Some people like to find new opportunities. Some people like to work on like nurturing their customers to get more opportunities from them. Is that correct?
Yeah. So think of like most sales engineers, they do POCs and they love getting their hands dirty and doing POCs.
Yeah.
But a POC is a proof of concept. I can do a quick and dirty sort of art of the possible, show you sort of the concepts of what's happening. But if you then ask that same person to go and do a full detailed rollout of all 3,000 sites and I need this thing
Yeah.
and it's
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. Like like I never want to get into it. I
Yeah.
want to do 7 POs. I want to quick. My attention span's this big. It's a great job for people with ADHD. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, yeah,
I'm
that's
there.
what I would say. Get that. I always tell people if they're technical, right, and they want to go into a technical career. Usually, when you come out of college, you come out with computer science or whatever background you have, electrical engineering. You do whatever that core part is, and then you have a decision, right? If you like customers and sort of if you like showing technology off and you get excited and you're onto the new thing all the time and you really just buy a new phone and that's what you want to do is go show people it, that's like a sales engineer.
Yeah.
If you say, hey, this is really cool, I want to go and make an app on it, I want to let's go and create a project, let's go get some people, let me find some developers. Okay, you're probably professional services, you're very project focused, you like to do it. If you want to write the kernel of the phone, then you go stay in computer science. And then and then if you like to troubleshoot it, so you love it when something breaks on your phone and you're trying to figure it out and you just love solving puzzles, you go support, right? So depending on what your rationale is, you go one of those 4 paths, just the stuff beyond your technical knowledge.
Yeah. And also depending on the company, sometimes the company combines multiple roles into one.
You can. I mean, especially when you're small. But usually what ends up happening is even if you combine them all into one, it's sort of like a sales rep, right? At like Cisco, where they're expected to do all those things, the account manager. They end up naturally gravitating to what they like to do.
Yeah.
Right? So like you might go heavier on the piece you like and kind of do the other part just because you have to.
Yeah.
So that's probably one approach. But overall, you tend to gravitate to what you're good at and what you like to do. They tend to be the same thing.
Yeah. I was just thinking of myself. Like I used to be in support. And I moved to network design and then sales engineering. And now, although like I enjoy troubleshooting stuff, I enjoy the feeling of solving something more than actually troubleshooting it. So, yeah. So, yeah, I like to start the debugging, but then I get bored really easily and want to sell stuff.
So it's also how you get motivation, right? I mean, usually when people are talking career, you talk about a lot of these different things. What makes you happy, what gives you energy. So for sales engineers and people that tend to like sales, I like having short sprints and wins. I like getting a feeling of achieving something, right, over a short period of time. Whereas if I'm a developer or a product manager, I need to be happy getting my win once every 3 years, right? Because I'm releasing a new product only once a year, every other year, whatever that might be. And for someone that wants quick wins, you'll be miserable. You never feel good about yourself.
Delayed gratification doesn't always work.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta fit your reward system with what you love to do.
Yeah. You mentioned you came from sales engineering background.
Yep.
And I was reading your blog post. I forgot the title, but I'll link it in my post. Do you remember the title by any chance?
Yeah, something around. I played around with trying to get a title that would catch people's interest, but that isn't too. So I think what I did is, why I chose to move from sales engineering to customer success.
Yeah.
I think my original title was something to the effect of, yes, I made the decision to choose customer success and why.
All right.
I think there's differing views on that function.
What I remember is why I almost didn't choose to go into customer success. I don't know why that's stuck in my head, but
hey, that's true too. I think that's very true.
So, that's what I got out of reading the post that you put in, and I'm wondering why that is, and why in the end you made the decision to move on to customer success.
Yeah, so I think a big part of that I've learned in my career is when you're doing what you love, then work becomes like a hobby. And when work is a hobby and you enjoy what you're doing, then everything else in your life tends to go in the right direction. Friends, family, home life. When you make a decision because of money or title or something else, it's hard to be really happy and go above and beyond. And that spills over to every other area of your life, like a title, for example, or whatever you attach to it. So I learned that, fairly early on. So I started even coming out of college. So I had the joy of, I dropped out of high school. And then I ended up going back eventually to school.
Okay.
And yet you have a very different perspective of what you choose to do and what you choose not to do. But the downside of dropping out of school for 1 year was, rather than graduating at the dot-com peak, I graduated in the dot-com bust.
Ouch.
Oops,
Yeah.
1 year off, right?
Yeah.
But even my first job out of college, I ended up choosing a career that I thought would be really interesting. I had something that was more money. I could have gone to like Raytheon, wanted to war at the time. I could have gone to Raytheon for more money, or I could have gone to work for MIT, Lincoln Laboratory, which was a university.
Yeah.
And they were doing research projects for the government. So I chose the less money, but a really cool environment at MIT. And then at MIT, I had the choice of 2 jobs. One was doing this programming, this other, I don't even remember what the language was. It was some esoteric program language I've never heard of, which sounded really cool and geeky, especially coming out of computer science. Or the other one was, hey, look, you're going to write some code, but you're really just going to travel around to tropical locations, and we're going to shoot some missiles down, and you'll be in the back of a Humvee, and you'll be, writing code in a cubicle, but your cubicle will be literally a cube on the top of a mountain, like on a missile range, and, you'll be just making stuff happen. And I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds cool, right? So you choose what you think would be interesting, right? Travel, exposure to new things. And so the way the career went was, every time I had a job choice, I chose what I think would be new or interesting, right? Keep your attention for a few years. So I went from computer science to then shooting down nuclear missiles to Cisco, where we did post-sales support, but escalation support. So I liked the business unit. It was originally a sustaining team where we wrote bug fixes, but then we changed into much more like escalation and crisis management. And then when you fix a bunch of problems, you get to know the sales teams because they're dealing with customers and you're fixing customer problems.
Yep.
Then I ended up moving into the sales engineering side and did a bunch of different jobs there. And then eventually, your sales team tends to turn over a lot. So as a sales engineer, you tend to be a bit more stable. So I got to do a lot of experience of both running a sales team and then running a technical team. And one of the things we were trying to figure out was, how do we simplify sales? Because at the time we were trying to simplify POCs, right? Just like, what I'm sure the team here is trying to do. And what we realized was, it took 176 different SKUs to order the right stuff, software, hardware, and 4 pallets of equipment to give someone the full experience of, we were doing voice and video and WebEx.
And
right?
that's just for POC.
That was just for a POC. To
Nice.
do a full POC, right?
What could go wrong?
Possible, right? So you're trying to sell, so therefore I need a phone, a video unit, I need the control system behind it, I need the bridging. And what we realized was, that was one realization, was, wow, this is really complex to just try to do everything and show everything. Even ranking virtual machines and trying to standardize stuff. But the second part of that was, we always were trying to push customers to upgrade. And it was like, well, why do you want customers to upgrade their software? Well, because then they can use more stuff. But it was like, well, what's the benefit? Because it was really hard to upgrade things and took forever and stuff would break. Yep. So our thought process was, well, look, they should never upgrade unless they're getting something of value. Because if they don't upgrade, great, I don't get support calls. Who cares?
Yep.
It's great. It makes it easier. And if they want to upgrade, they should be upgrading because they want something, not because I told them they have to stay in support. So we sort of ignored the top-down advice of going and upgrading everybody. And our overall approach was, let's look at what we do that's different than everybody else. Not what we're good at, but what's different. And so when we looked at what was different, we said, okay, there's these 5 areas that we do better than anyone else. I can basically do, voice and control voice in a really cheap manner globally in a really consistent, easy manner. No one else can do that at very low price, right? So that's one sort of differentiator. Another differentiator was we had a whole customer experience because we were the only ones that could tie contact center or call center and voice. So we found out what we were differentiated at. And that's what we sold the customers, were these like 5 major differentiators. When they said they were interested, what we then did was we worked backwards and said, okay, if this is what you're trying to achieve, you only need 6 SKUs to do a POC. And this is exactly what you need. And you only need to upgrade this piece of your software. So we took this massive amount of complexity down to something that was exactly what the customer wanted. And I knew we were differentiated. So we did that for a bunch of years selling, right? It was almost like an adoption play, right? We had, Cisco has every customer out there, so I didn't have to find new ones. And it worked well. But what was happening was Cisco just was going in a direction that wasn't aligned with SaaS and consumption models and growing things and velocity, right? They were more like, what's my big multi-million-dollar deals? They cared more about that than the rate of consumption. So I ended up leaving to go into the SaaS environment. So when I came into Zscaler and we're selling stuff and, I was doing the pre-sales, when they asked me, hey, will you start and do this customer success job? I instantly got like flashbacks to when I was in the crisis management things, right? And I remember like being called in the middle of the night. I remember people dying because if you have a heart attack in the middle of a hospital, what do? You pick up the phone to call someone. And if your
phone's not working.
If your phone doesn't work, the person dies. Like, that's a crappy feeling. And so my initial reaction was, thank you, appreciate it. No way. I don't want to go and do it. And they're like, but Bill, it's a promotion. It's a VP title. It's a worldwide job. I'm like, I'll get there eventually. We're growing. I'll be promoted in my current role. I don't care. I like what I'm doing. And so they came back again. So this time that was the head of talent. So the next thing that happened was our COO and head of our chief revenue officer said, hey, Bill, we're looking at candidates. I don't really know. We don't really like them. We did this retained search. No one really understands what's going on. You get a good blend of business and technical. Would you be willing to take another look at this? And I said, geez, I really appreciate that. It's flattering. Again, I'm thinking, oh, God, I did that earlier in my career. But I thought about it more. And I'm like, I've already learned this stuff. Like, I've done it. I'd be bored doing something I've already sort of done. And at that time, customer success was viewed more like a post-sales team, right? I'm going to fix tech support cases. I'm going to get renewals.
Right.
Not that interesting. So finally, I think another month went by, and my CEO, who also happens to be my chairman of the board, who also happens to own more than 50% of the voting stock of my company.
So influential, you're saying?
Yeah, basically So I said, hey, can you take a look at this? And I thought about it. I'm like, all right, every time that someone's asked me to do something, you can either do what they ask, and this kind of goes back to customer success. You can do what someone wants, or you can give them what they need.
Yeah.
And I took that approach, and I thought of it like sales. They're going to say that they want something specific, but if you know really what they're trying to do and you give them something different, that's good.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, let me come back and think about it, and I'll come back to you with a proposal. If you like it, I'll do it. If you don't like it, then cool, I'll keep doing what I was doing on the sales engineering side. And when I went back to think about it, I thought back to Cisco, where it was all around, what are your differentiators? How do you make the customer successful? How do you make it a reality? How do you drive consumption? Consumption's not a bad thing. If people use something more, it's because they like it, right? They're getting value out of it. That customers want things of value.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we said is, customer success isn't about making a customer happy. It's about making them successful, which means it's sort of like, if you're trying to lose weight, you go and hire a coach, right? A fitness coach or a nutrition coach. Well, if I hired them because I want to lose weight, but if I start eating pizza and not doing things I should, I need that coach to tell me I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I need that coach to hold me accountable and to push me and drive me to things I might not think are comfortable. And so that's basically what we went back and said is, we're going to do customer success. We're not going to be a support team. We're not going to be a pre-sales team. We're going to be a team that actually just works with the customer. We're going to do something completely different, make it so that they're achieving whatever those business objectives are. It's going to require basically going, just like pre-sales, working with people across the company, overcome objections. And that's the approach we're going to do. And it's everything we do, we'll start with the customer, work backwards, including metrics and measurements. And they said, and somehow I had to distill that to one slide, because I've learned in interviews, if you have a bunch of slides.
Yeah.
It's not very useful. So, I conveyed it down to just one simple message, talked through it, and next thing I know, they said yes. Then I was like, crap.
Oops.
Yeah, you kind of put out a big idea that's very different, and you don't assume people buy into it. And when they do, you're in those, maybe it'll happen once or twice in your career. But, I remember when I decided to not go into sales engineering and to do my old job for an extra year. Someone said to me, they said, look, Bill, the other job of sales engineering is always going to be there. It's a normal job. It's a standard job.
Yeah.
But how often will you be able to create your own organization from scratch and do something completely brand new? And so when I was 25, I spent an extra year doing a job to build something brand new and learn more in that 1 year. And I figured I'd do the same thing now.
Yeah. That's good. Not many people get the opportunity. Sales engineering is hard to get to if you don't have the contacts or if you don't know this. Like, you knew the sales engineers when you worked with them, so you always had that option. But sometimes sales engineering is hard to get to. You just reminded.
But here's the other thing: is that I don't know any sales engineering leader that isn't constantly sitting there saying, "I need to hire more people. How do I find people? I can't find the right people."
I know.
So it's both sides. They're saying the same thing. Like, I know our sales engineering team. Now maybe it's because the bar is kind of high, but we can never hire fast enough. Even at Cisco, when I was there and we weren't hiring a lot, it was still hard to find good people. And by the way, Chicago, for whatever reason, seems to be the hardest for such a big city.
Yeah. So what I've noticed is that whenever people are trying to hire sales engineers, they're always looking for experienced sales engineers with 20 years of experience who are okay getting paid a junior engineer's position or something like that. So, but there's
so by the way, that's usually what sales leaders want. Sales engineering leaders, I think, are in a different position. If I go as a sales engineering manager and I ask my counterpart on sales, what do you want? They basically describe a unicorn.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, yeah, not going to happen. So this is what I'm going to give you. You got to trust me. And I have found to this day, the best, every time I hired someone based on their skill set, they had a CCIE this, they had that, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
Every time I hired someone based on, passion and the other triggers, and awesome.
Yeah.
So engineering is a get your hands dirty kind of business, and that's what you need to get.
I hate to break it to you, but that makes you unique in that role, because the sales engineering managers that I've talked to are also looking for experience. So my sales engineer manager at my previous position hired me without any experience because I came from their customer.
Yep.
And then something happened. They needed to hire somebody else in the same location. I gave them like many recommendations of engineers who are not SEs but have good skills. And no, we need an experienced SE. But you took a chance on me, and I like to believe it worked out for you. I guess that's why they didn't want to do it again. I don't know.
Well, here's sort of the challenge too, though, right? Is from a sales engineering perspective, you got sales and you have engineering. So you can have people of a mindset that are very structured, very process oriented, here's my system. And then you can have people with more of the sales mentality, which is much more broad. How do I get stuff done?
Yeah.
But the way I've always looked at it, and I've always encouraged the other managers to think, is, hey, look, no one graduates from school with a sales engineering degree.
Yeah.
So someone had to teach them. So you have a choice. Do you think you're a good company or a bad company? Because what you can do is either let some other company you don't think is as good as you teach them how to be a sales engineer, or you teach them the right way of how to be a sales engineer, because someone's teaching them this because they don't do it in school.
Yeah.
I personally would rather get the right skill set, mentality, and everything else, and then teach them how to be a sales engineer. Because honestly, I don't think it's one of the only roles that isn't extremely regimented, but is much more of a, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this thing, but it's a GSD. It's a get done role. You got to figure out how to GSD. That's what the sales engineering job is. I've had a big debate with other people about what is a sales engineering job. And I said, it's easy, it's GSD. And that turned into a 2-hour debate as they tried to get into all the other pieces. And I said, nope, everything you're describing is GSD.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. So I have a bunch of questions about about the things that you said about your career path. So you had an option to go to MIT and some other company, which I didn't catch. But
Raytheon.
Raytheon.
Raytheon is a big like Lockheed Martin,
Okay.
Raytheon, they're grabbing
Okay.
a big military contractor.
So did you know that you're going to be on the back of a Humvee before you did not take the job with Raytheon?
Yeah, no.
So how does
They
one
were
choose?
called, it's interesting. They said it was field systems, and they did say there would be some travel. I wanted to travel some. They said there'd be some travel, and maybe one day I'd be able to go to this place called Kwajalein, which is this island in the middle of the South Pacific. But I didn't know what that would have entailed, for
Okay.
sure. I just knew it was different.
Right. So that's what drew you. That's what you found interesting, and that's why you took the MIT job versus the other job.
Yeah, it was. Well, one was I think it was a better opportunity to learn and not really constrained by this really rigid government process of Raytheon.
Okay.
And MIT was a little bit more open to things. And one of the things I've learned is you have to find a place that's a good fit for you. It's not whether you have the skill sets for that company, but it's whether that company is a fit for you. And I remember probably two things that I actually probably the more important thing I think I remember from getting that job was I went into MIT and this other group was like in some random building out in the back. They weren't even on the campus. So we walk out to this random building. I come in and he's looking at my resume and he goes, "Oh, well, which one are you? We have two different guys coming in." And the guy was all over the place and flustered. And I said, "Well, I don't know who the other guy is, but I know I'm the guy you're going to want to hire. So why don't we just go with that?" And from the other room, I hear a guy yell, "I don't know who that is, but if you don't hire him, I'm going to hire him."
Nice.
And so to me, there was a little bit of a cockiness there, but
Yeah.
it was like I was trying to put them in their place a little bit. It's like, look, I came in here and drove in, and you're just now looking at my resume.
Yeah.
Like, too bad. And what I found was I liked that support. So the fact that they weren't put off or insulted
Yeah.
by the fact I said that was probably a better indicator that, yeah, this is a place that will let me come in, even take some risks as a younger person, do some things, that maybe I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And that's what it was, is they gave an opportunity for someone that was young to do a lot more beyond whatever my job title said.
Yeah.
But you got to know you're the right fit. So probably more so than any of the other stuff, I found it was the right fit because it was the right culture fit for me. That's more what I remember than any of the other stuff.
All right. Well, this is a general question. If someone doesn't have the same situation that you were in, where you told them that they shouldn't hire anybody else, they should hire you, and somebody else yelled from the other room, how can they tell if they're going to be a good fit or if the company's going to fit them before actually taking the job?
Yeah, so I find out about company. I find that just like when I interview people, when I'm interviewing for a company, I find out more about the company outside of the interview process than inside of it. Inside the interview process gives you a compelling event to do things. But like when I went to go to Zscaler, for example, and I wanted to find out if this was a company I wanted to work for, yes, I went through the interview process. But what I also did was I went through their pre-sales process. So I signed up as a make-believe customer.
Nice.
To go through their pre-sales process. I watched their demos on TV to see how did they demo, how did their people do it. I interviewed people that left my company that were fired. I went to hear the bad stuff. I went to hear the good stuff. I went and interviewed their customers. I found out who I knew that was using them, and I went and I reached out to those guys and asked them for their opinion. And then, I tried to find people that worked there. And then I look at how they treated me throughout the process. What was their approach to me, right? Were they, transparent? Were they honest? Did they let me, for example, I remember when I was interviewing at Zscaler, they gave me a slide deck and it was 75 slides long. And they said, "Hey, we need you to do an executive presentation." And I was trying to be nice. I'm like, "Hey, cool. But how long did you want me to present?" "Oh, 15 minutes. I don't normally present 75 slides in 15 minutes. Do you mind if I do a different approach?" And they let me do a completely different approach. I didn't use the slide deck at all. I came in and did something completely different, but they let me do something different. So that's a test I do. But a lot of this is knowing what you as a person operate best in. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people do that. They don't reflect on what is the environment that they work best in. I did that early on, understood I worked best in an environment that had a lot of autonomy, allowed me to take risks, didn't judge me on how I do it, but judged me on the results of what I did.
Right.
Something that let me roam and get involved in lots of different things. So those are things that you need to understand what environment you do best in, and then quiz and check on that all along. It's amazing to me. I do the final interview for every hire into my organization. And I say to them right up front, this is your time to investigate us if we're a fit.
Yeah.
This does not, I'm not going to decide whether I hire you or not. If I'm spending my last 30 minutes with you and the team has spent a week, 2 weeks with you, when am I going to find out difference? This is your time. And 9 out of 10 people sit there and pitch me all their skills. And I have to stop and have a dinner. I'm like, look, I don't care. Like, what do you need to know of the company if I'm a fit for you? Why are you leaving your last company?
Yeah.
But that's what I think people need to understand.
Right. Something I would like to point out, that you threw away the slides and you did something different, but you must have done a kick-ass job doing something different, because it's a higher risk maneuver. So unless you killed it.
Yeah, it is. But it's high risk, high reward, right? If you go in and do something that everyone else does, you're not going to stand out. I asked for permission sort of up front, or I set some expectations up front. But it comes back to probably one thing that I've learned and why I even took the current job I have. It's give the customer what they need, not what they ask for.
Yeah.
And what they needed was an executive or someone who could speak technically executive and communicate in a very simple manner. And what happened was, so when I was going for that job, my current company is extremely technically savvy. I don't want to say elitist, but very high up on the technical side. Like, you got to know networking, you got to know security.
Yeah.
So by the way, even though I worked at Cisco, I was in voice. So networking and security I had never done.
Yeah.
And here I am trying to get the role to lead all of their technical resources for network and security in a job I've never done before. And most of our people are all PhDs, right? So I found I have to go back to my strengths. And what that is give them what they need, not what they want. So what I did was I said, my job is to take really complicated technical stuff and make it simple and easy to understand. And it actually is similar to there's a whiteboard video I have on YouTube that explains my company, my technology. Come to find out, it was a randomly recorded whiteboard video I did, 5 minutes long. That video has more views than every other video at Zscaler combined external. And it was not a big formal thing that was done, but it just simplifies what we do. And that was what I approached. I basically figured what they need is someone who can take really complicated stuff and make it easy to consume. And that's what I tried to do. Now, you have to sort of still guard your gap. You can't go all in on that. So I came in with that very simple message, but I also came in with like a half-page thick stack of detailed proof points on everything I've done or ways that I fit things. And my message was, look, if you want to go deep, here you go. I'm giving you this packet. You can look through it and ask me questions, or glance through it and just trust me. And now we're going to go to the high level. We're going to go and talk top down. And that usually sort of the fact I would give them this really detailed packet showed you have the depth if you need to, but that's not what you need. What you need is someone who can simplify all of that.
Yeah. All right. No, that's perfect. I know you have a dead stop in a few minutes, but I have something that I call the not so fire round, but we might have to do it in a fire round succession today. It's 4 questions I ask most of my guests. They change over time depending on people telling me, oh, that's a crappy question or not. So let's start with that. So what's the one thing you love about doing the job that you do today?
People.
All people?
I like people. I like to challenge people. I think that's it. The challenger sales mentality. I've always never been smartest, best, prettiest. I suck at sports. I pretty much suck at everything. So the only way I could ever win was by understanding the rules and coming at it in a completely different direction. So when I work with people to get them out of their comfort zone, to get them to think differently, whether it's customers, prospects, teams, just the shock value, right? Come at it from a different perspective, think of it completely different. That's what I love most about the job, and that's people. People thinking, getting people out of their comfort zone is probably the best thing.
That's a very good answer. Not that you need my approval.
Hey, it's a good question. I never thought of it before, but I think that's it, And so my company's been very successful. You think about retirement sometimes, and then I think, well, what would I do if I retired? I'd want to do what I love doing, and that would be hard to do if I ever retired.
Yeah, that is true. All right, so, what would you change about your job?
Oh, there's a lot of it right now. And I think it's important in a job that you have periods of where you sprint, and then you have periods where you can rest. I think just where we are and where we're going, we've been sprinting a long time. So
Okay.
I need to make sure I take periods of rest, or you get burned out. Sprinting is good, right? Fight or flight response as a human,
Yeah.
you get your best creativity, but you need times to recharge and re-energize. Otherwise, you just get really worn out. I think that's probably it. You got to be careful to have what's your work style. I personally like to sprint and rest.
Yeah.
It's hard lately to get some rest time, just with the rate of growth of our company and where we're at, and I need to do a better job of that.
Is that similar with a lot of successful startups?
It's I think sometimes it's a badge of honor. People say, "Oh, I just work hard. I do all this. It's what I do, 80 hours a week." I've always been in places that's grow fast and everything else, but it's usually what happens is I get involved and I do a big sprint in the beginning, and I invest a lot of time in the leadership and the leaders and everything else, and then it just starts to maintain.
Yep.
Because your leaders are really, really strong. You put yourself out of a job, and in this case, we're doing that, but it's a global job, different geos, different offices, so it's just a little bit. We're still in that phase of where I'm building it up. In fact, I think on my blog I have in one of the earliest posts I talk about that big investment time in the beginning. The biggest difference is probably it's a big investment because this is such a brand new function, a brand new team, and it's such a huge scale. It's a longer chunk of time to sprint.
Okay. Well, good luck. I hope it calms down soon enough. Next question is there a book or resource that you think my podcast is about sales engineers, so sales engineer or customer success engineer would read, and you're looking at your bookshelf right now?
Yeah, a lot of people always say the same books. The book I would say that probably had one of the biggest impacts on me that a lot of people don't know about was I don't see it up there, but it was a book called The 5 Patterns of Extraordinary Careers. And it's good. It had good stories in it, but it made you think about your career slightly differently. And it also was really useful to understand, what goes into it. Not that you're successful, but extraordinary. And I think that's the most important thing is if you find out what you really like and what really drives you, that will help you. And I haven't learned, I think of sales engineering or really any business, and it's sort of, you can learn the motions of something, or you can learn sort of theory or stories or something. And so I've always learned my favorite books on sales engineering actually aren't about sales engineering. They're about biographies of people in business, biographies of companies, stories. I learned more from Andrew Carnegie, Steel biography, or World War II. World War II stuff's amazing on thoughts of strategy and how you position it and value. But I've learned more. If I look at this, I haven't been able to successfully read a sales engineering book. They're all boring. The other book that I would highly recommend, the best book I've read in a decade, is right here. This is actually what I'd love to do someday, is what this person did. He basically wrote a blog similar to me where you just were venting on stuff. But it's the hard thing about hard things. And it's Ben Horowitz, who's from the VC firm Andreessen Horowitz, just talks about all the stuff about running a business that no one else will talk about, like whether or not you should swear at work, right? Like profanity at work. Talks a lot about the peacetime CEO versus the wartime CEO.
Yep.
So peacetime would be like, hey, John Chambers, it's easy to look smart when everything's good.
Yep.
But what happens, like for example, should you ever hire someone away from your friend's company, right? Like, should you ever poach someone from your friend's company?
Yeah.
How do you, make something a good place to work? What happens when everything goes wrong? Because I don't care if you're running a company or not. When you're an SE, you run a business. It's your local business.
Cool.
Yeah. Those two, I'd say, 5 Patterns of Extraordinary Careers and The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
All right. You mentioned you read biographies. If if you would recommend one biography to start with, which would it be?
Oh, let's see. That's a good question. What are some of my favorites?
Busy guy.
Yeah, right. I would probably say, you know what? I'm going to go with a different one that people might not be aware of. And it's not a biography of a person per se, but it's more a biography of a company. So being from Boston, Deck is dead, long live Deck.
Okay.
And it's a great view of as you move transitions, right? Transition from industry to industry or sort of that and Making Elephants Dance by Lou Gerstner, which was, how do I move from a mainframe company to a software company or a services company, which is what that one was. So that is probably two books that I'd say were really good from a biography or something about a company. There's a whole bunch more of just computer science history, Dealers of Lightning, things like that. That was a good one as well, but more in a history perspective.
Okay. Well, this is perfect. I usually have one more question, but I think we're running out of time, and this one usually takes.
If I can answer it quick, 2 minutes between meetings, I'm fine. So
Okay. So, what advice would you give a sales engineer or a customer success engineer, whichever you prefer, that you don't think they're getting from anybody else?
Probably just understand yourself. If you understand yourself and what gives you energy and what motivates you, you can usually craft any job you do to fit that. So sales engineering and customer success can be very difficult at times. Customers never tell you anything good because they think you're going to, try to charge them more money. So you only hear the negatives, right? But if you know what gives you energy and what gets you excited, you can craft your job to that strength, right? So I know what gives me energy is usually working face-to-face with customers and working face-to-face with people. So I just try to do a lot more of that and find other ways to do, internal mechanical type things. And you can shift your job, but you have to know what gives you energy. Because if you don't have energy and you're not feeling positive, then it's really hard to churn through or power through your day. So I don't know if anyone else would ever give that. It's kind of a hippie answer, but it's how you get fuel. And otherwise, you just won't survive. You won't be able to do it over a long period of time.
It's not a hippie answer, in my opinion. Whatever that's worth, that's a perfect answer, at least for me. Yeah. And that's it. That was the end of the interview.
I appreciate it, and hopefully it's useful. I think we need to, in these industries, we need more of this type of stuff, just where we talk and learn, because no one has great courseware on how do I go be a sales engineer. So the more things that are out there and available for people, the better.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. Well, thanks, Bill. Thanks, Bill, for your time. I know you have a meeting in 2 minutes, so good luck with that.
And, no worries. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show with Bill. This is show 50, and it was an amazing show. It didn't disappoint me. I'm actually very proud of show 50, and I'm happy to have Bill on. And during the conversation with Bill, I realized that he does not really like the status quo. So, before him, sales engineers at Cisco have been doing the POC the way they've been always doing it. Ordering all the equipment, a massive number of equipment, to do the POC. And that was the status quo. And Bill figured out a way to make it easier and better just because he didn't want to keep doing it the same way. And that led to working on differentiation and focusing on selling that. So that I thought that was special and different than most of us. So something to learn. Show notes for this episode, which include the books, the YouTube video Bill was talking about, and links to Zscaler careers can be found there. Don't forget to let me know what you think about the We the Sales Engineers forum. And with that, this is Ramsey signing off.